Ansible Automation Platform is a product offering from Red Hat to allow organizations to automate in concert with each other. So it differentiates from the upstream project Ansible that many people are familiar with in that it's focused on teams, organizations, and scaling out the automation across many different people. So I like to say is like, when does Ansible Automation Platform become interesting for an individual? And it's when two or more people want to start combining their efforts, is that's when they would come and investigate Ansible Automation Platform and try to scale this out for their organization so that everyone can reap the benefits of that person trying to automate. Customers would specifically look at Ansible Automation Platform to update load balancers and DNS because these are two things that constantly change and churn within the organization, and they're very prone to breaking all the time. So they're perfect candidates for automation. A lot of times, if you have to do something once, it's not like a very high rewarding task to automate. You spend 5 hours automating something, but you're only doing it once a year, so there's not a lot of ROI. So a lot of times when we measure success of something, it's about how many times is it changing, how prone is it to breaking. The more something's changing, the more time it is for a human to break it. If I'm constantly logging in, at some point, we're all human, we're gonna make an error. So DNS changes are especially frustrating. I think anyone who's ever worked help desk or troubleshot any IT infrastructure in their life has managed to hate DNS or blame DNS because DNS is the problem and the root of all evil. DNS is very easy to break. It can be very confusing to configure because it's different on different systems. And it can be hard to understand that DNS has to propagate within a network or system so that even though you might have configured it correctly, it may take some time for it to actually propagate and reach all the end users within your organization. So this means it's really great candidate for automation where we can automate to make sure that it's done correctly, that the user understands that this will take X amount of time, and then it will actually check and assert that the thing is actually done correctly and check for you so you know that there's no actual issue with your web browser, your phone, your piece of equipment that may be unique where it just needs its DNS cache flushed. Now, load balancers, it's very similar as well, is we want to automate load balancers because we may be taking lots of applications, servers, containers in and out of that load balancer pool constantly. And a lot of times this is tied directly to DNS, is you may be using IP addresses, or you may be using DNS, or you may be using a combination of both in your organization. So let's say I have an application or server that has an issue and I want to take it out of the load balancer so that I can troubleshoot it. That could be an automated process where I remove it from the load balancer. I make sure traffic's not hitting anymore. I wait for the traffic to drain off of that. Then I modify and change that particular application, fix it, and then re-add it to the load balancer. That is a very typical use case across many of our customers at Red Hat. And it's something that is very prone to being able to be manually broken because it's not necessarily hard. It's just really easy to make a mistake, mistype something. Everyone has mistyped something. That's why spell check isn't everything. And it's just something to think about is like, this can be just a button click where you automate that process and you tie it to that server. So load balancers, very common. We see this a lot with our partner F5. We see it a lot with Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS, where they have built-in load balancers. But honestly, as long as that product has a certified content collection, I'm sure someone's been using that at scale because it's an awesome use case for Ansible Automation Platform. So what is the expertise to be able to automate DNS and load balancers? So Ansible is not necessarily replacing the SMEs, the subject matter experts within your team. You still need to have someone that understands load balancers. You need to have someone that understands DNS in the particular systems that you're using, because those systems may be different between different vendors or how you've configured and set it up within your infrastructure. But the barrier to entry to using Ansible is quite low. We consider ourselves just a force multiplier to getting work done easily, faster, more consistently. So playbooks should be readable by anyone that has that knowledge within your organization, but you can actually operationalize this, which is a fancy way of saying we can actually up-level this so that it's just a button click within automation platform. So what this means is you're able to take your team and scale out that subject matter expertise across many different individuals and teams to be able to automate that. And you can keep it on guardrails where, let's say you want someone to configure DNS, but you've restricted to how many characters they can use or which zones they can configure. You can create a survey within Ansible Automation Platform to allow them to do some automation, but keep it within your rule sets and your policies that you have set up for your teams. So I would say there's some learning, but I think what's so awesome about Red Hat products is there's such an ecosystem of tools and knowledge sharing around it that there's very little cost associated with training. And a lot of times when we talk to our customers, we sell training bundles with our products. So it's very easy to get started. There's lots of community resources out there, but we also have our global learning services training that's just amazing and has a lot of like boot camps that we do with customers, and it's really easy for them to get started.